I sent my love confession to the wrong person, but he said he likes me back? My mind was fuzzy and unfocused as I went up the stairs and into my room. Miraculously, I'd managed to convince my older brother that I wasn't drunk. Or maybe he didn't believe me and decided not to say anything. I entered my room and flopped heavily onto my bed. Memories from the party were still swimming in my mind. My best friend Mika had somehow convinced me to attend. Well, somehow wasn't all that accurate. All she had to do was tell me Noah would be there. And he had been there, the life of the party, laughing and causing a scene and not really noticing me, as usual. Not that I minded. At the party, I tripped over someone's feet. I probably would have fallen flat on my face if a set of quick fingers had not grabbed my arm and pulled me up, leaning me against them with my chin propped up on their chest. Tipsy and winded, I came face to face with Noah himself. "Ho there, be careful," he flashed me with a charming grin. "You alright, Levi? Can't have a genius like you getting hurt out there." My body went warm all over. In his arms, all I could do was stare, like an idiot. This apparently qualified as alright, because he released me with a chuckle. In the darkness of my room, reliving the memory, it made me giddy. I almost went to sleep, but my mind couldn't get off him. I fished my phone out of my pocket and unlocked it. I opened the Messages app and scrolled to my conversation with Noah. It was, as usual, mostly conversations to do with schoolwork, asking to see my notes, or for my help explaining one class for the other. He occasionally chatted with me casually, but it mostly had to do with academics. He was still so nice to me though. With my phone in my hands, I got a stupid, daring idea. I liked Noah since we attended the same grade school. He had been a big part of the reason I knew I liked boys at all. We knew each other for years, and though we weren't as close as I wanted, he liked being around me. What if I just told him I liked him? I quickly closed the app. In my right state of mind, I never would have entertained that idea for more than a second. Unfortunately, I wasn't in my right state of mind. I reopened the app and opened our chat once more. Sleep was starting to weigh heavily on my eyes. I could barely see my screen. I typed out a rush confession before falling asleep with my phone on the base of my neck. I woke up sore in a million places. As I sipped my water, my hand instinctively found my phone. The moment I grabbed it, the memory of what I had done right before I went to sleep hit me like a freight train. My stomach dropped. I swiped furiously to unlock my phone, opening my messages with shaky hands. No, oh God, what did I do? I muttered to myself as I stared at the message I had sent. "Hi, I just want you to know that I like you a lot. Like, I have a massive crush on you. Good night." Worst still, it had already been read, and Darryl was typing. Wait, Darryl? Seeing the notice saying Darryl is typing at the bottom of the screen made me realize I hadn't sent the message to Noah at all. I had sent to someone else, to Darryl of all people, the star of the basketball team, friend to all meathead jocks I did everything I could to avoid. My dread immediately morphed into utter mortification. Now, I had to explain that I had accidentally sent him a drunk text, and what little of a social life I had would be over. I'd only just started frantically typing at my message when Darryl suddenly came in. Wow. Just wow. Sorry it took so long for me to respond. I really don't know what to say. I'll just be honest. I'm really happy right now. I've liked you since forever, but I never in a million years could have guessed you liked me back. I stared at my screen. I don't think I've ever been that shocked in my life. Unconsciously, I typed out a quick message. "Darryl, are you playing a prank on me?" He had to be. After all, Darryl was straight. Wasn't he? I didn't realize I had just voiced out my thoughts as I followed my text with another. "I thought you were straight." His reply came swiftly. "That's just what everyone thinks. I've always kept it a secret, but I guess I could tell you now since I know you feel the same way." I leaned back against my wall in disbelief. This had to be some kind of weird dream, but no, I was awake. Darryl was also someone I had seen around a lot starting from my childhood, but we barely talked. I remember him being a little quiet when we were younger, but as he got older, he became a lot bigger and stronger and ended up getting heavily involved in sports. Now, in our senior year, he was someone pretty much everyone knew. He even had a few girlfriends in the past. Was he bisexual and closeted then, or... No, wait. His sexuality didn't matter. Apparently, I was the one he liked. That was the most important thing. I looked back on my phone. He was typing again. "Do you mind if I call you?" I cringed as I quickly replied, "I think it might be better if we talked about this at school." It was Saturday. That gave me 2 days to figure out how I was going to tell him the truth. "So, how are you going to tell him?" Mika asked me. We were sitting together near the school entrance, talking in low tones as everyone headed inside, and I ran a comb through my low, thick afro. "I don't know." I groaned and covered my eyes. God, I'm never drinking again. Mika sighed sadly and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Yeah, you're like royally screwed." Just then, the bus suddenly pulled into the front of the school. Its doors slid open and students began pouring out. Darryl was so tall. He stood out like a sore thumb. He glanced around holding onto the straps of his backpack before making eye contact with me. He smiled. I quickly glanced away. "He's cute though," Mika said. "Like, really cute. Why not just see where things go?" "You know I can't do that," I mumbled. "Well, you're gonna have to deal with that because here he comes." My heart jumped into my throat. Sure enough, when I turned back to face him, Darryl's long legs had already carried him halfway to where we were standing. We both had to tilt our chains to look up. "Morning, Michaela." "Hey, Levi." He was staring right at me. As he greeted both of us, I wanted to dig a hole for myself and hide. He was trying his best to hide how happy he looked, but his joy was practically shining out of those dark eyes of his. Beside me, Mika chuckled before releasing me and strolling into the school building, leaving Darryl and me alone. "Hey," I fidgeted where I stood, wishing I could shield myself from the sunshine beaming from his face. About what we talked about that day." "Yeah?" He raised his brows slightly. I needed to tell him. I'd been hoping it was a prank of some sort, but no, he was serious. He liked me. He really, seriously liked me. No one had ever liked me before, at least not anyone I had never known of. I chewed my bottom lip. "We should meet somewhere and talk," I finally said. "In private." "Right," he breathed. "I've got practice after school, but we can meet after that?" I couldn't handle how earnest his gaze was. I quickly turned away. "Cool. See you then." Without waiting for him to say anything else, I rushed into the school. I weaved through the crowd, trying to get to my locker, when a hand suddenly caught my shoulder. "Where are you running off to? It's not even time for class yet." My heart skipped a beat. Noah was standing right behind me. "Oh, I smiled nervously. My face grew prickly and hot. "Just want to get there early for, reasons." "Right," Noah chuckled. He let go of me and crossed his arms. "Just wanted to check on you. You got a pretty hammered on Friday. Like, do something really stupid hammered." I smiled awkwardly. He really had no idea. "I'm fine," I said. Regardless of the situation, I was happy that he had come to check on me. "Just a little headache on Saturday, but nothing too bad besides that." He nodded. "Nice. So, hey, you know that test that's coming up in science?" I tilted my head slightly. "Yeah?" "I'm pretty lost. Don't get any of the material." He laughed. "I'm free after school. You should come teach me a little bit." I blushed. He was always relying on me like this. I was about to reply in the affirmative when I remembered the conversation I just had outside. Sorry," I sighed. "I kind of have something I'm already doing." Noah blinked, seemed surprised for a brief moment. I couldn't exactly blame him. After all, I was almost always free to tutor him. "Hey, that's fine." He smiled gently, patting me on the shoulder. "Another time, then. See you around, okay?" With that, he walked away. I sighed heavily and dragged myself over to my locker, disappointed to have missed my chance to spend time with Noah. Well, it was fine. As long as I could clear things up with Darryl, it would be fine. Once the final bell rang, I made my way to the gym. I didn't know when Darryl would be done with practice, so I figured it would be best just to wait for him. The basketball team was already in the middle of practice when I entered the spacious room. Darryl really stood out. He moved quickly and smoothly, running circles around his teammates, both literally and figuratively. I'd never been a very athletic guy, but I couldn't help but watch with some interest. The girls cheered him on as he waited to receive the ball from his teammate. He glanced toward the bleachers for a brief second, and then did a double take when he noticed me sitting there. The last thing I saw before the ball smacked Darryl in the face was his eyes widening slightly. He fell heavily onto his back, earning cries of surprise from everyone, myself included. Just then, he had been distracted just by the sight of me. Darryl was known for never being distracted by anything, except when it came to me, apparently. "Alright, if Darryl's taking balls to the face, it means we probably need a break," the coach hollered, his voice carrying throughout the entire room. "Take 5. I watched with a mixture of dread and fascination as Darryl made his way over and sat beside me, gingerly, more than an arm's length away. "Hey," I turned to him worried. "Are you alright?" "Yeah, I'm fine." He didn't look at me, staring straight ahead at the court. "Doesn't seem like it's gonna swell or anything, but I'll just put an ice pack on it when I get home." He paused before quickly tacking on, "That doesn't usually happen." I smiled, breathing out heavily through my nose. "I know that." I expected him to say something, but he remained quiet. I didn't know if he just didn't want to talk about it yet, or if he preferred to wait until practice was really done and over with. Regardless, I didn't say anything either. I could feel a few people glancing our way. After exactly 5 minutes, Coach blew on his whistle, and all the players gathered on the court. Darryl glanced at me with a smile, before hopping on his feet and jogging over to join them. Practice started again. This time, Darryl didn't allow himself to get distracted. In fact, judging by the surprised reactions coming from both his teammates and the people watching, he was more intense than he usually was. I sighed softly to myself. Was he trying to impress me, now that he knew I was there? After practice, I waited behind as the team hit the showers. "Sorry that it took so long," he said. The top of his head was slightly damp. "It's fine." I took in a deep breath as I shut my book. "Here we go." "So, you like me?" He gave me a sheepish smile. "That's what my text said," I mumbled, glancing to the side. "And you like me? Back?" "Yeah." "Seriously?" I looked back at him, still searching for any hints that this was an elaborate joke. "That's what my text said." He tilted his head. "Is it really that hard to believe?" I shrugged. "A little bit. I mean, how long have you liked me?" He started tugging lightly on his jeans. "A nervous habit, maybe?" "Middle school," he confessed. "It just kinda came out of nowhere. I recall when I first realized I had a crush on you, Noah." "Yeah, crushes do that." "What about you?" he asked me expectant. "When did you start liking me?" Crap. I couldn't stop the nervous laugh that left me, my gaze cutting to the side. "I honestly don't know." "Oh." He fell silent again. When I looked back at him, he was smiling down at his hands. He was giddy. I had to set the record straight. "Look, so..." He started talking before I could get anything else out, accidentally cutting me off. "I know we don't really know anything about each other, even though we like each other, so I was thinking we could go catch a movie or something." He stared at me, waiting for my answer. When I didn't say anything, he tilted his head back. It felt like something was squeezing at my heart, just looking at his face. I couldn't imagine telling him that text had been an accident, and that I didn't like him at all. But the look on his face, the way he was looking at me, got me weak. I knew it was a bad idea, and yet I found myself smiling weakly at him. "A movie sounds great," I said. "You can pick." The day of our movie finally arrived. During the week, Noah had asked me a few times for my help, but I couldn't go in good conscience spend time with him the way I wanted to, not when I knew Darryl still thought I liked him. "Did I do something to make you mad? You're barely hanging out with me," Noah asked me on Wednesday, finding me by my locker. "I'm sorry, I've just been busy." In truth, I didn't want Darryl to spot me talking to him. It would make things awkward if he somehow figured out I had feelings for Noah before I could tell him the truth. We decided when and where we would meet for our date over text. Thankfully, it was just a movie. We wouldn't have to talk or anything during it. Unfortunately, Darryl seemed to have the same realization. It was a comedy movie, a pretty funny one too, so I enjoyed it. Afterwards, as we walked out of the building, he turned to face me. "I just realized that a movie probably wasn't the best idea for a way for us to get to know each other." "Well, I know you like comedy movies," he chuckled. "But I want to know more. Do you want to get something to eat?" I wasn't honest, pretty hungry. "Sure," I answered despite everything. It would probably be best to be somewhere where we could sit and talk anyway. We could go get burgers or something. Together, we made our way to the nearest fast food restaurant, which was just a few minutes away on foot. "Aren't you worried about people seeing us?" I asked him, keeping my voice low. "You're still in the closet, aren't you?" "I guess." He picked at his fries. "It's not like I'm trying to keep it a big secret or anything like that. I've just never really needed to tell anyone. Like, I'm bi, but you're the only person I ever really liked in a while. And I didn't think I had a chance with you until like last week." He smiled. While I wondered how he was able to say something so sweet and sad without feeling shy about it, I definitely would have. But then again, he believed I felt the same way about him, so he really didn't have a reason to hide his feelings. Did he? "I'm stuck on that," I confessed. "I mean, why me? Why not you? I've always thought you're pretty cool." I let out a laugh. "You're the first person to ever describe me as cool. All I do is read all day." "Yeah, you're smart." He popped another fry in his mouth. "That's cool." Darryl's gentle smile never left his face, and his gaze never left mine. I was at a loss. "Well, thank you," I mumbled, looking away. "I'm really glad you think of me that way." "To be honest," he continued, "I was pretty surprised when I read your text. I'd always gotten the impression that you liked Noah." My heart jumped. I looked back at him, startled. "Really?" "Yeah." His face settled into a slight frown. "It's probably a good thing that you don't like him, though. And not just because I like you." I blinked. It almost sounded like he knew something I didn't. "What do you mean?" Darryl opened his mouth about to answer. When he paused and sat up straight, something behind me seemed to have caught his attention because he stared past me, his frown deepening. I turned to see what he was looking at and spotted Noah himself making his way towards us. "Speak of the devil," Darryl grumbled. I, on the other hand, felt shock settle on me like a cold, heavy blanket. Hey, was walking past and saw you two through the mirror. Didn't think I'd see guys from school here." Noah was all smiles as he brought a hand down to lightly ruffle my hair. "Hey, Noah," Darryl greeted. He looked significantly less happy. "Noah, hi," I started out. Curiously, Noah glanced between me and Darryl. "I didn't know you two were friends." My mind had barely started to form an answer when Darryl spoke up. "We're on a date, actually." My shock turned into panic. That was the one thing I didn't want Noah to find out. Noah looked genuinely shocked for a moment. "Whoa, Darryl, you're into guys?" Then he looked at me, raising an eyebrow. "You like Darryl?" My lips flapped uselessly for a second as I struggled for what to say. "I mean, we're just getting to know each other." "Which means you do like him." He narrowed his eyes slightly at me. I had no idea why he was looking at me like that, but it made my heart sink. "No need to be shy about it. Don't let me interrupt your date." With that, he turned and left the restaurant without another word. Shaken, I turned back to Darryl. He was scowling now, staring at the door Noah had just left. I'd never seen Darryl make that kind of look before. "It's not my place to tell you who to hang out with, but you really shouldn't hang out with him anymore," he said, his voice dripping with barely contained irritation. I stared at him. Why? Darryl finally met my gaze. "Because he's using you. He says it all the time when he's with his friends. He only hangs out with you because you help with his grades." Silently, I looked down at my food, processing his words. I liked Noah for years now, and had all I could do to get on his good side. Even though I knew I never had a chance, I'd always held that silent hope that he would someday notice everything I did for him. But now, he thought I liked Darryl, and Darryl was telling me this. I couldn't believe him. I didn't want to believe him. "I think he leads you on, so you can keep doing what he wants. I always felt bad because I thought you liked him," he continued. "So, it's a good thing you don't." "I do, actually," I blurted, raising my head up to look at him. Darryl frowned. "Wait, what?" "Look, I know you're into me, but I can't believe you make that stuff up to turn me against him." I knew my voice was bordering on hysterical, but I didn't care. "I do like Noah. I always have." Something in me regretted my words the moment that hurt, confused look crossed Darryl's face, but there was no taking them back at this point. I decided to do what I should have done days before. "I'm sorry I got your hopes up, but that text, I was drunk. I meant to send it to Noah, not you. I'm sorry." As I got up, I couldn't look at his face. I didn't want to know the kind of expression he had on. "Really, I'll pay you back for the date and the food, but I've got to go. I'm really sorry." I turned and rushed out of the restaurant, not looking back even once. I felt horrible, but it had to be done this way. No matter how nice he was, I couldn't keep leading him on. I tried not to think about what he had told me. Noah being nice to me, I didn't even want to imagine it was all because he wanted to use me. I didn't know how I would be able to cope with that. I need to straighten things up with Noah as soon as possible. "A drunk text? So you really did something stupid on Friday?" Noah laughed. We were sitting together in the classroom after school. I had asked him to stay behind so I could talk to him, wanting to explain everything. "I had to tell you the truth," I sighed. "That's what I had been trying to do on Saturday." "But you did tell him, right?" "Yes, I felt terrible though." "You shouldn't," Noah smiled gently. "You did what you had to do. It's definitely better than if you decide to lead him on, you know?" I sighed again. He was right, but I still felt guilty. I couldn't get the look Darryl had made out of my head. Suddenly, Noah's tone changed. "By the way, you said you sent that text to him on accident." I blinked as he suddenly shifted his chair closer. "Does that mean it was supposed to be for someone else?" He smiled. My face flushed. Well, I had no idea how to answer. Noah had never spoken to me like this before. "You can tell me," he said, lowly leaning in. "I have a feeling who it was meant for. Want me to take a wild guess?" Suddenly, his face was close to mine, closer than it had ever been. His gaze flickered down to my lips and then back up to my eyes. And then, he was leaning even closer in. My heart was just about to stop for a moment as I realized he was trying to kiss me. I held my breath and stayed still, waiting for his lips to meet mine. Against my will, Darryl's words echoed in my head. "He only hangs out with you to help his grades. He leads you on so you'll do whatever he wants." All I wanted to do was melt into Noah happily, but I couldn't. He never hung out with me, only speaking to me the bare minimum amount. The only time he tried to hang out with me was when he wanted me to teach him something, or when he wanted to cheat off me for homework. His friends always looking amused whenever they saw me talking to him. Had he really made me the laughing stock to them? I did something I never in a million years thought I'd ever do. I turned my head away from him before he could kiss me. "I should get going," I mumbled. "It's my turn to make dinner." "What?" Noah let out a frustrated laugh of disbelief. "Levi, are you serious?" I quickly started to gather my things up, Suddenly, he grabbed me by the wrist. "I just tried to kiss you." His warm, playful tone was completely gone, replaced by something cold and hard that I had never seen before. "Don't you want that? You like me, don't you?" I shrank away from him, trying to twist my arm out of his grip. "Darryl said something to you, didn't he? Are you seriously gonna believe him? He's just trying to get you to stop liking me. You know that." His gaze softened, and he tried to warm another smile. "I really do care about you. You make my life so much easier. Don't you believe me?" I really did want to, but it was hard when his grip on me was unrelenting. "I really need to leave," I said, panicked. I pulled my arm free. Again, Noah's kind expression cracked. Now he looked angry. Just as soon as he parted his lips to say something, the door to the classroom swung open. We both turned, and there stood Darryl, glaring daggers at Noah. Taking advantage of the distraction, I quickly stood up. Noah snarled at Darryl. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I left my backpack," Darryl said coolly, walking into the room and up to his desk. He really had forgotten his backpack. That didn't seem like something someone just did accidentally. He kept his eyes on Noah as he walked over to it, before finally looking at me. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I mumbled. Aside from the stinging on my forearm, I was fine. Physically, anyway. Noah looked between the both of us in disbelief. "Of course he's fine. I didn't do anything to him. You know what? Screw both of you." He pushed his chair back and got up, sending me a withering glare. "I'll find someone else to cheat off of." And he stormed out of the classroom. That settled it. He really had just been using me. I sank back into my seat, staring at the wooden surface of my desk in shock. So that dreaded first heartbreak everyone experienced finally caught up to me in my senior year. Even as that deep sadness settled on me, I was keenly aware of Darryl standing nearby. "Thanks," I mumbled. "You left that on purpose, right?" "Well, yeah. Sorry if that was creepy," he said softly. "I saw you guys stay, so I thought I'd hang around in case you needed my help." Even after I'd been so mean to him, he still decided to help me. His kindness was admirable, really. "Thanks," I said again. As soon as I heard my voice break, I couldn't hold the tears back anymore. I tipped my head forward, trying to hide my face from view as tears spilled over and dropped into my desk. Quietly, Darryl sat beside me. Without a word, I leaned into him for comfort. I felt him tense slightly, as if surprised by the physical contact, but he relaxed and gingerly put an arm around me. This guy was really too nice for his own good. After everything I said to him that day, he still came to help me, going as far as to comfort me. "Are you angry with me?" I asked, after a few seconds of silence. "Sort of," Darryl admitted, "but it's fine." "It's not," I insisted, sitting back to look at him. "I led you on, and when you tried to warn me about Noah, I trailed off with a sigh. Darryl, I'm so sorry." Darryl shook his head. "Hey, it's fine, for real. Liking someone can make you do pretty odd stuff." He glanced away with a slightly sheepish smile. "The fact that I'm here, at all, is proof of that." I blinked. He still liked me. After everything? Darryl pushed his chair back and stood, grabbing his backpack and slinging it over his shoulder. "You alright?" I brought my hand up to wipe a few tears that had escaped. I knew more would probably come soon, but at that moment, I was a bit more focused on Darryl than my own pitiful situation. Yeah, I'm fine." I hesitated. Darryl?" He cocked his head as I stood up as well, facing him. "Yeah? Look, I really don't know if it's appropriate, but if you're okay with it, we can go to the movies again, or wherever else you like, completely on me. I kind of ruined it last time, so it's the least I can do." Darryl raised an eyebrow at me, a silent question. "Not as a date or anything," I hastily added. "Just hanging out. As friends. If you like. I hesitated, again, asking him to hang out as friends, even though I knew he liked me. Didn't it just sound like I was just friend-zoning him now? Exasperated at my own words, I said, I don't know, sorry, forget it that I asked that. As friends is fine, he blurted out. I must have looked surprised at that, because he laughed nervously. I've always wanted to get to know you better in general, not just because of, you know. Yeah, the situation was a little awkward, but if you really didn't mind, then alright. In that case, I'll text you later, alright? Alright. His gaze softened slightly. Take care of yourself, okay? My heart did a squeeze. Seriously, what on earth did this guy see in me? Together, we left the classroom. The halls were now mostly deserted, with the majority of students having left already. Since Darryl had practice, we had to part ways there. It felt like a weight settled on me as I stepped out of the school. I spent the next couple of days getting comforted by Mika. It was hard still going to school every day, just the risk of seeing Noah was enough to make me want to stay in bed all day. And when I did see him, he very pointedly ignored me. I saw him chatting with Catherine, one of the smart girls, president of the chess club, and I got the devastating sense that he was already in the process of replacing me. Despite all this, I planned a trip to the arcade with Darryl. We met there on Sunday. Hey, I greeted him as he walked over to me at the entrance. How you doing? Pretty good. You? I sighed through my teeth. Been better, but, you know, I shrugged. What would you like to do first? I asked him, trying to speak over the noise. I've never been here before, he responded with a little effort. I glanced at him, surprised. Why would you choose to come here then? Darryl shrugged, probably sensing my question. I've always wanted to, but I figured it would be the best to come with someone who's been here before. I couldn't help but sigh a little, so he picked the arcade with me in mind. Well, whatever. It meant I was obligated to show him a good time. What kind of games do you like? I asked. As he opened his mouth to answer, I held up a hand to stop him and added, and don't say you'll play anything I'll play or anything like that. We're hanging out for your sake, not for mine. Darryl smiled sheepishly, as if he'd been caught. Then he looked around, his gaze eventually landing on a nearby dancing game. I've always wanted to play one of those. I probably suck at it though. Then we can suck together. I sing like crap at that game, I chuckled. We made our way through the crowd until we reached the machine. Predictably, we sucked. I'd played the game before, so I wasn't completely terrible. But Darryl had more trouble. His long legs, as graceful as they were when he was on the court, were having a hard time following the arrows. Despite this, he laughed the entire time. Is there an achievement for getting the lowest score possible? It was only much later in the day, after I finished teaching Darryl all of my favorite games, after he somehow managed to win a prize at the crane game, and after we said our goodbyes and I got home, that I realized something. I hadn't thought about Noah the entire day. Of course, just remembering him brought back that sharp feeling of pain, but thinking about the good time I had with Darryl made me feel a lot better. Darryl and I naturally started to spend more time with each other for that. If we weren't hanging out at school, I was going over to his place, or he was coming over to mine. Soon, we had just become proper friends. He started to join Mika and me when we ate lunch together. It was usually just me talking to her though, as it seemed he just preferred to listen. Darryl kept staring at you during lunch. He probably still likes you, you know, Mika told me one day. I'd invited her over so we could study together. I bit the inside of my mouth. You think so? I know so. Unless you've done something to turn him off, even though you don't like Noah anymore, he's probably too nice to try and make a move on you. She leaned in, her gaze curious. And you seriously don't feel anything for him? I glanced away. No? My answer must not have sounded very certain because she laughed. Sure you don't. I rolled my eyes. Come on, I don't. Yeah, he's really nice and cool and stuff, but he's just a friend. Right, we're just friends. That's how it always starts, Mika teased. I just shook my head and went back to my studying. I definitely didn't like Darryl as anything more than a friend. I don't know if I was trying to reassure her or myself. And even if that did happen, I didn't want to end up using Darryl as a rebound to get over what Noah had done to me. He deserved much, much better than that. With nothing better to do after school, I decided to go and watch Darryl practice again. As usual, he stole the show, and just like before, he outdid himself the moment he noticed I was there. I paid a little attention to the girl sitting beside me, that is, until I heard one of them mention Darryl's name. "I can't," she whispered. "It'd be so obvious I'm into him." I tensed slightly. "That's the point," her friend insisted quietly. "Just hand him some water when they're done. That way, he's bound to notice you. Just go for it, girl." I frowned. At that moment, the coach's whistle marked the end of practice. As soon as Darryl put the ball away, I stood up. I didn't know what compelled me. All I knew was that I absolutely did not want those girls approaching him, holding onto the unopened bottle of water I'd brought along to drink. I hopped off the bleachers and jogged over to him. He looked surprised. This was the first time I'd ever approached him after practice, if not the other way around. "Hey, good job out there." With a smile, I offered him the bottle. Darryl blinked. Then, I got the pleasure of watching a clearly flustered smile appear on his face. "Thanks." He took it from me, opened it, and downed its contents in a few gulps. I glanced back at the girls who had been sitting near me. Their surprised expressions just gave me an odd sense of satisfaction. And then, I realized what I'd just done. I was shocked by my own actions. I'd been upset at the idea of someone else flirting with Darryl. In other words, jealousy. Jealousy. That word swirled around in my mind for the rest of the day, plaguing and mocking me. Feeling jealous could only really mean one thing. That evening, I called Mika up to tell her what had happened. She berated me with, "I told you so's." Asked Darryl on a date. That was an order I received from Mika. To be honest, I was nervous. I'd already rejected him once in the past, pretty harshly too. Would he be upset if I showed interest in him now? The next day, I decided to just go for it. I waited for him to finish practice and brought it up to him as we left school together. "You know, I still have something to make up to you," I said. He looked over at me, surprised. "What? No, you're not. I'm not mad at you anymore." "I know, but I do owe you something," I insisted. Doubtful, Darryl watched me. "What?" "A date. One that isn't a disaster." Darryl stopped in his tracks, a genuinely confused expression on his face. "Wait, what? But wasn't the arcade—" I stopped as well, turning to face him completely. "That was just as friends. I owe you an actual date." Darryl continued to stare at me. I sighed. It looked like I'd just asked him directly. "I'm asking you on a date. Like, I want to go out with you." Darryl's eyes widened. Oh. Darryl glanced away. He tried in vain to stop himself from smiling. "Where?" He had that giddy expression on his face again. It seemed Mika was right. He did still like me. "Wherever you want." I smiled. "We can try the movies again. I promise I won't run off like I did last time." With a small nod, Darryl agreed. Thus, our second date, our first actual date, was set, and many, many more would follow. I didn't realize just how much Noah had been using me until his grades dropped drastically, almost as soon as I stopped spending time with him. Despite his best efforts, it seemed no one was willing to be his substitute tutor. Darryl and I continued to go on dates, and soon, it was no secret that he and I were officially a couple. Being with him made the latter half of our senior year much, much sweeter. After we graduated, he and I ended up in different colleges. Even though we weren't far from each other, we were initially worried about how our relationship would do. But with weekend visits and a lot of trust in each other, we managed to make it work. Has a mistake ever led to something good happening? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.